Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move on to what we call a fast start strategy. So for those of you who are already involved in the Bitcoin funding team, and also for those of you, again, that are looking at this for the very first time, this is an opportunity to review the 2x5 matrix in a little bit more detail and really start to get some tips on the most effective way to build this out. So I want to share I'll share some personal feelings with you as someone who has generated millions of dollars in home-based business before, and some of the things that I did that really had a significant impact on how my businesses blew up when I was young, in my mid and later 20s. And there's also, obviously, as you can imagine, plenty of things that I did incorrectly that slowed my business down or had, an unattractive, unappealing effect on it. So I'm going to help you also avoid some of the obstacles that I got stuck in as a rookie first getting started, and really help you streamline your process so that you can get this done as quickly as possible. Now, we have an initial objective, and that initial objective is $5,000 in monthly donations. So we've broken this down into a couple of steps. The reason we wanted to put a training together with an initial objective a little bit smaller than a maxed out matrix is because I know that many people, well, listen, let's be honest, many people have a short attention span and they need to see results very quickly. Believe it or not, often what they'll do if they don't see results very quickly, they actually take the process very personally, and they're very difficult on themselves, and they often quit. And many people quit building something like this very closely before they're about to blow it up and really start to realize some of their goals. And so I want to help you get results very fast in your first 2 weeks, your first 30 days, and your first 60 days, so that you can realize the process itself works well, and you simply need to invest some of your positive energy in making the process work for you. So let's dive into it. Okay, first objective, 60-day objective, and listen, if you want to accomplish this in 30 days, you absolutely can do that. So this is a 30 to 60-day timeline, really, is what we're talking about. Okay, 2 steps. Now, if we're getting into specifics, we're talking about a fully donated level 3 within this with this 2x5s, this 5-level matrix. We're talking about a fully donated level 3. All right, so remember, level 1 is 0.1 in donations times 2 individuals for $240. Level 2, 0.2 per person times 4 people for a total of $960. That completes step 1. And step 2 is completed with a level 3, which is 0.4 times the 8 people that are on your level 3. And that's just under $4,000 US dollars for a total of 4.2. Now, in all fairness, there's also donations. If you recall, there's donations that you're making as well. You're making a 0.1, you're making a 0.2, and you're making a 0.4. So the net is actually a little bit lower than $49.40 because I didn't show those donations. But you obviously know they're happening, and what you need to focus on most importantly in this build phase, which is step number 1, is what we call it sort of a sharing this with the 2 friends that you most want to work with, helping them do the same, and then making sure they help their friends do the same. And that's it. That one sentence, that basically describes exactly what step number 1 is. It really is taking a teamwork first focus. So I'm selecting 2 friends who invite 2 friends. That's step 1 done. Now, I've asked many of you and many other individuals how long you think step 1 should take. Now, I have had some answers that some people have said 2 days, some people have said 30 days, but the most common answer that I'm getting from individuals with experience and individuals pursuing something like this for the very first time is a couple of weeks. That's what I'm most often hearing. Okay. The secret really, though, in making this work is prioritizing the 2 friends that you select. So I would, for example, I would share this with a number of friends and decide which 2 that I most want to work with, and they would be my first 2 friends. Because remember, you can only pick the first 2 yourself. Every other person is going to fall underneath those first 2. And so this group here is really going to set the pace for how fast you start to realize success within the Bitcoin funding team system. Okay? Now, our objective then really should be helping our friends do the same thing. Because if we do that, they're going to be learning from the example that we just set, which isn't, I'm just going to sign 6 people myself, because I know many of you could easily do that, especially with such an easy project to discuss and share. But that's not the objective. The objective is start to use a system and let a system work for you. So by sharing this with 2 friends and helping them do the same, you've equipped them then to help their friends do the same. And that's it. That's step number 1. So that's a total of 14 members. At that point, if you want to sign a 3rd or 4th friend personally, go ahead and do that. But I would really encourage you just to select a couple friends in the beginning. Make sure you complete step 1 before you add a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th friend. Okay? Now, we've already discussed how long we thought that might take. If you want to, you can have some fun with this. You can maybe run some competitions or take individuals out for dinner. If you sort of set some targets and individuals are blowing you away with how quickly they're completing step 1. So I would encourage you to do just that. This is, after all, your business, and you can have perks and bonuses and competitions if that's something that you want to do. So this is what that looks like as far as donations go. So there's the first 2 individuals that you shared this with, and they're making their first donation directly up to you. Now there's the first 2 friends that they shared this with, and they're making that first donation up to your friends. And then your level 2 friends are sharing this with a couple of friends each, and they're making donations to your level 2 friends. What's interesting though, now you've put your level 2 friends in a position where they will also be making their level 2 donation to you. So you now receive donations from level 1 and also from level 2. So you've received actually about 1 full Bitcoin or $1,200 in donations. If you've done this in a couple of weeks, that's awfully impressive growth. Now keep in mind, you've also made a level 1 and a level 2 donation yourself, but you certainly have seen 1 full Bitcoin of donations come into you. So build phase, check. Done. Now we want to shift over for step 2, which is the teaching phase. And the teaching phase is really where a lot of the big magic starts to happen, because you'll start to see the good examples that you set in phase 1 or step number 1 really have an opportunity to take root and grow in step number 2. So this is where we want to focus on helping by teaching the 8 people that make up our level 3 how to complete step 1. That's it. That's all we need to do. So there are the 8 individuals that take my level 3. Now keep in mind, of course, your 2 friends who added 2 friends who added this group of 8, so you're not doing this teaching on your own. You're teaching them and supporting them as a team. Okay? But again, the same objective. If you look at the first individual of those 8, we're going to help him add 2, who add 2, who add 2. And guess what he's just done? He's completed step 1. And we want to help all 8 of these people do exactly the same thing. So this, in theory, if you did this in a couple of weeks, they could also do it. Even if it took you a month to do this, the idea is to help each of them complete step number 1. And once you've done that, you actually have put yourself in a position where you can receive level 3 donations every single month. Not just once, but every single month. So here's what my step 1 looked like, and here's what my step 2 looked like, just so you can see the math and you can get a sense of how large your growing team has become and what's required to start to see these types of donations. Okay, now what I'd like to do after we do this little review of what you've accomplished in your first 30 days to 60 days is I'd like to talk specifically about how you're going to get this done. And we've assembled a flow chart that I think will serve as a bit of a visual aid for you to wrap your head around this process, this very simple process, but it's still important for you to internalize this and become very comfortable with this. Now, I'm sure that you're familiar with this concept of constructing a names list, because I'm sure you've been told to do it many times before if you've been involved in home business. Well, listen, even though this is just a platform and it's very easy to share, there's no reason to deviate from this initial process where you're going to construct a list of friends that you'd like to work with. Now, I'm not going to tell you this list needs to be 2,000 people long, and I'm not going to tell you need to dedicate hours and hours reaching out to these individuals, because you don't. However, I really would like you to be sensitive to the people that are close to you that you think could use a bit of a hand at any particular point in time right now, and that group of people that you'd love to work with, okay? It's just important for you to go through that process of making the list. Whether you do it on your tablet or on your computer or on a piece of paper, I don't think it really matters, but I think you need to put those names down, and you also are going to need to get telephone numbers and emails. So, step number 1, we've created a very short script for you, and you're going to make contact probably with 5 or 10 people to find a couple of friends that are going to be perfect to be your first 2 friends in this. Now, you don't have to make contact just by the telephone. You can use social media if you want to. You can reach out on Skype. You can reach out on Facebook Messenger. You can use WhatsApp or WeChat or Line. It really doesn't matter. What I don't want you to do, though, is send an email blast out to 1,200 people and just kind of wait for people to get back to you. I really don't want you to do that. It needs to be one-on-one contact so you can have proper conversations using script number 1, where all you're doing is sending them to our team site, bcftglobal.com. Now remember, I mentioned there's 3 short videos on there, a total of a 12-minute investment. That's it. 12 minutes of information. And what basically started working for me most effectively, where my business really blew up when I was a young fella, is that I would send a limited amount of information. I would really restrict what I sent, and then I would follow up immediately. So the way I would use script number 1 is say, listen, I'm going to send this information to you now if you have 12 minutes right now. If you don't, I'll wait, I'll hold off, and I'll send it to you another time. So if my friend said, no, I've got 12 minutes right now, I say, okay, I'm going to send this to you now, and I'm going to call you back in 12 minutes because I would really like to hear what you have to say about this. And I want to ask you a couple questions after you finish watching it. So I would simply return that call, and I would use script number 2. And after I do that, my friends are going to fall into one of 2 categories. The first category is that thank you, but no thank you. I don't have enough time. I love my job. I'm allergic to money. It really doesn't matter what they say. They just don't feel this is the right project for them, and so they've said thank you, but no thank you, and that's completely fine. What I would encourage you to do, though, I would encourage you to ask your friend if you can follow up and just show them how you're doing after you've completed step 1. Now, your friend will absolutely respond to the affirmative. They'll be happy to hear from you again. First of all, you're respecting their no thank you, and secondly, they're going to be curious to see how you're doing. So I would encourage you to do that. Now, you're also, I tell you, you're going to have friends that fall into this category. I can't believe this. I absolutely love this. Just to show you how easy this is to have this happen, I was actually sending a link to our bcftglobal.com site to one of you and accidentally dropped it into the wrong Facebook chat. I dropped it into a Facebook chat of a friend I haven't talked to for 10 years. And I got this message back 2 days later saying, wow, that looks amazing. How do I get more information? In fact, I think he even said, how do I get involved? And so I really do use that bcftglobal.com site. It's a very simple, straightforward way to get started. So those friends that say, I love it, help me sign up, all we're going to do is repeat this process. And by repeat the process, it means that we've run them through a very simple system, and now we're going to teach that to them. So they're going to enroll. They're going to start sharing this with their list of names they accumulated, and they're going to select the 2 friends that they most want to work with that'll sit on their level 1. And that's it. That's the entire process. Okay, so let's summarize. My apologies. We've got to walk through the scripts. So this is, first of all, what you need to understand about these scripts is that this is just simply a guideline. Some of you communicate very casually like this. Some of you are much more polished when you're speaking with your friends or more articulate. You use whatever language is most comfortable for you. That's the rule. Okay. The bottom line is this. I'm going to catch up, and I'm going to say, listen, I'm on to something really cool, and I'd love for you to see this. You're familiar with Bitcoin, aren't you? So I ask this open-ended question here, and I also ask it to the positive as though I'm assuming that they're familiar. They may or may not be, but I would make some sort of comment afterwards, and let them know that something remarkable is happening. I want to send this information over to you right now. And like I said before, it's basically a landing page with 12 minutes of information. I want you to check this out. Can you do it right now? Yes, you can. Great. I'm going to fire this off to you right now. Now, 12 minutes comes and goes, and I'm going to follow up with script number 2. And at this point, I probably would make a bit of an assumption. Definitely makes sense to own a little bit of this stuff now, doesn't it? And I would just listen. I would listen to their response, and then I would respond accordingly. And what I essentially would be telling any of my friends, but especially the 2 that I want to work with, listen, let's take a little bit of action and get you out in front of this next huge growth spurt, okay? But if you're going to be one of the 2 friends that I'm going to put on the first line of my matrix, I'm going to require a couple of things. And the first thing that I'm going to require is that you're going to have to pick a couple of go-getters just like I am right now that are going to want to work with you. And that's an absolute necessity. And the second is that you're going to have to help me as we make sure they become familiar with the system and start doing the same thing that I'm doing and that you'll be doing. So those are 2 non-negotiables. And if I got any sense that my friend was just joining with me simply to make me happy, or they enjoyed spending time with me, or they just were curious about what I was doing, I would not make them one of my 2 friends. It's as simple as that. It's nothing personal. This is timing, just like anything else is timing. I want to make sure the first 2 friends that join me in this really want to run, really want to change something in their financial situation, and they want it as badly as I do, and that would absolutely be a prerequisite for me to have them be one of my first 2 friends. That's it. So at that point, let's get 0.1 Bitcoin working for you, and let's go. Okay. Why a system? And you've heard me, in this training, I probably referenced system, said system, talked us around system many, many times. It really is important to understand that systems are the way that you are going to reach your goals. You're not going to do it by selling things. It's impossible. You have a finite number of time or amount of time. Right now, you're already using. And I think the one thing we all have in common, every single one of us on this call is already using every minute of every day. So the time to do this has got to come from somewhere. And if you don't want to waste your time and you want to realize your goals in the quickest, most effective way possible, it's going to be through a system. It's not going to be from you doing all the heavy lifting for everybody else yourself. Okay? So by bringing a couple of friends into this, and then immediately leaning on the system by teaching that simple model, now you can start to leverage yourself. Because we all have the same number of hours of a day, same number of hours a week and a year, and there's only so many hours that we can trade for dollars. Even if you're a working professional, you're a dentist perhaps, you're a lawyer, you're a successful business owner, regardless of what it is that you do, you have a finite number of hours that you can trade for a unit of cash. So maybe if you're a high-profile professional, you're not making $10 or $12 or $15 or $20 an hour. Maybe you're making $200 an hour. Maybe you're making $250 an hour. That is not how wealth is created. I'm sorry. It isn't. You're never going to become wealthy that way. And I can tell you for certain, because what happens is as your worth per hour continues to increase, well, guess what else does? Your standard of living does. The way you spend money does. And so you're never really going to financially free yourself by trading units of time for units of cash. It just does not work that way. Leverage is the only way to create real freedom, because now you're able to have total time freedom and financial freedom. And systems are always, 100% of the time, always behind a totally leveraged financially and time freedom. So basically the big picture is this. If you follow the step 1 and step 2 system, this is what you're doing. You're making sure that everyone that's in your level 1, 2, and 3 of your matrix understands the importance of the system as well. They understand it, they've learned it, and now they're doing it. So this is also going to accelerate you all the way to a maxed out matrix, remember we said earlier in the presentation, that's a net of around 80 Bitcoin a month. So that's your end game. That's really where you want to get yourself. What's remarkable, I think, is because of the simplicity of this project, I think because of the fascination the world seems to be having with Bitcoin right now, I just think the timing has been very, very ideal for this project to be launching when it's launching, because I'll tell you, that seems to be in part what's explaining the incredible growth that we're seeing in such a short period of time, about 6 weeks. I think our team covering Europe, North America, South America, and Australia, boy, it's got to be closing in on around 1,000 people so far. That's just a couple of friends sharing with a couple of friends. So we would absolutely love you to be part of the team, and we'd be happy to help and coach you towards your own success if that's something that you can see yourself doing, or if that's something that you need to do. So with that, I want to thank you so much for your time and attention. Make sure you get back to the person that asked you to watch this webinar and let them know that you'd like to be one of their 2 friends, and they'll help you take the next step. Thanks so much, everyone.